Welcome to the Herstory Circle Podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And last week, we were graced with the presence of yet a fascinating woman, mover and shaker, politician in her region in the United States. Welcome back to our tribe so we can continue the conversation we started last week. Please introduce yourself again, tell everybody where you are, and let's continue our conversation. Hello, MJ. Wonderful to have you back.
Hi, Gertrude. It's very good to see you again. Thank you for having me again. I am very excited to be in conversation with you, and I am ready to be grilled.
Oh, I love it. You know, we touched on so many aspects of your life last week. This week, I want to launch with talking about healing through art. Now, the Interactive Healing Arts Project is a unique blend of art, mental health, and community. Can you share more about the genius of this project and its impact on the community during challenging times?
Yes, so the project was born in 2020, in the year 2020, and toward the end, it came from what I was observing around me, and especially in my community. There was just so much suffering. We were dealing with COVID. Over here, we were at the height of the Black Lives Matter protest, which was due to the big number, especially of Black men being killed due to police brutality, and also of Black women. And in addition to that, because of everything that was going on, and I mentioned COVID and having to be in lockdown, people started losing their jobs. Small businesses started losing the, ability to stay open and to make a living, so they were closing. Kids were forced to stay at home. And I knew, because I was hearing from teachers and parents, I worked with them, and how they were distressed and how the kids were sad and distressed and didn't understand why they couldn't play with their friends and why they couldn't go to school. And even when they were not in school, they were not allowed to spend time with their friends because they might get sick. And that went on for 3 years, right? But when all of that was starting, and I'm witnessing all that is happening, and I see how the government is trying to develop a test and to help us through all of that. And at the same time, we start dealing also with heat waves and with floods. And, when it comes to the environment, we have like extreme weather events happening that are also making life very difficult. Something I noticed that was very clear to me was that no one was really addressing what all of that was doing to our mental health. And as I'm observing all of that, and I'm wondering how I can, support my community, that's when I came up with the idea of creating the Healing Arts Project. I was looking for a way to bring the community together on a platform that will give people a mental break. When we were, dealing with news media and so on, it was always alarming. It was always the end of the world is coming type of news, right? So the Healing Arts Project was meant to create a space where people feel like they can breathe, they can encourage each other. And so it was a combination of being able to have a gathering of business owners who are giving their window space so we can have out there about the theme of healing. It was residents talking about what healing means to them, and students, anyone of any age talking about the change they want to see in the world. People talking about sharing just one line, word of encouragement to a stranger who's going to read it. All of that on the website, so people from anywhere in the world and people who cannot go in the city to look at the art themselves, that they're still able to see it. So that's how the project and the concept was created. And then quickly it took a life of its own, with schools reaching out and asking to also be able to do that as a school project.
I absolutely love it. You know, your work often intersects with education, from the Davis Network for Africa to consulting on ethnic studies curriculum. What role do you believe education plays in fostering a more inclusive and understanding society?
Education is the key to fighting and ending ignorance.
Yeah.
People cannot do better if they don't know better. So I'm a strong advocate for, us being able to tap into any opportunity to learn. And it doesn't just mean being in the classroom and sitting for 8 hours and having your brain filled with information that you then have to vomit again on paper. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be classy about the imagery, but sometimes it feels a bit like that, where the information is forced on us and then you have to regurgitate it in order to get a good grade and so on. By education, we mean all the amazing various ways of learning that exist where we are. It means, finding people where they are, learn about the gathering that is happening that might put you a little bit outside of your comfort zone, because it might be a topic that you're not familiar with. It might be a culture that is not your own. Go out there with an open mind and be humble and learn. And if something feels funny or weird, don't judge. Just
Yes.
say, okay, it's different.
And it is nothing with something being different. You're so
Absolutely. And I
about
think it is key to then, being in the practice of respecting each other, showing respect to each other.
yes.
But you have to know better to do better.
I love that. You've really touched on something pivotal. Our differences are a strength and not a weakness. Diversity is one of the biggest strengths we have as human beings, because we all have different ways of thinking and doing. So let's talk a little bit about your public service and advocacy work. With a vast profile in public service and activism, from climate resilience planning to serving on various community boards, how do you prioritize your efforts, and what drives your commitment to these causes? I'm really wanting to see how you've been juggling all of these balls.
So I don't say automatically yes to all the requests that I get. I need to take time to answer a few questions. And one of the first one is, am I the best person, for the task? And because sometimes the answer is no, because someone else with deeper experience, stronger background. The way I'm serving my community when that's the case is that I am directing them, I'm connecting them to the person I believe will be best to fill those shoes. So in that sense, I am a connector. I like to talk, a bridge between different groups and so on. And I'm encouraging anyone, again, also being a public servant or community organizer, to see themselves in that light. And then secondly, I never say yes without knowing how much time I will be spending on an issue, and how, and having already a plan also to address it. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned that last week, my goal is always to, as I'm doing the job, make sure I'm training someone else or a few other people. The goal is to be a catalyst. It's not to be irreplaceable. Because if something happens to me, it means that people are in trouble because they can't replace me. We don't want that. So that is, another part of the equation that, I'm trying to solve, which is, okay, how long am I going to be in that space for? how long is my commitment, and having a clear goal when I'm starting, being, this is what the situation is. This is by the end of this time where I want us to be at. This is the goal that we have collectively. And adjacent to that, these are the people who will know more about the situation by the time we're done and will be able to step in when and as needed, or will be able to train someone else, and so on. So that is, one of the ways I, you know, I decide some of the factors that help me decide why, when, I step in situations like that. And then there is urgency, how urgent, how dire it is. So 2020, when I became more active, people were dying left and right.
Yeah. So you responded to that call.
Yeah.
So working in diversity and inclusion can be rewarding, but also challenging. How do you share a particularly challenging moment? Can you share a particularly challenging moment or project and how you navigated it?
Ooh, it's hard to pick just one because there is no shortage of challenges. I think I'm going to start with the first one, which is stereotypes. It goes without saying, if someone is listening to this podcast, you cannot see me. So what it means is that before I open my mouth, sometimes people have already forged an opinion about me, about what I can and cannot do, about who I am. And this manifested when I'm having a conversation in the past a few years ago with someone younger than me, a venture capitalist, and we were taking a class together about something else, and he's asking me at some point, so what do you do for work? And I answer, I'm a startup founder. And he corrected me, and I have to say this is a young white man, that information matters. He corrected me, you mean you work for a startup? So I need you to understand what happened in that moment. The question is, what do you do for work? I say, I'm a startup founder. And the person corrects me right away. You mean you work for a startup? So I hope you caught the negation here. The implication is, I'm not someone who can start a company. I don't have the ability, I don't have the capacity. And I'm sharing that because many people who, are not, because of their background and cultural background, ethnic background, are not in a position of privilege from the start. We are always up against something from the moment we're kids. We always have to prove that we belong in the space. We always have to prove that we belong in the room. And the same goes when it comes to doing the work and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. You were already working with people who want that. They're allies, many of them, if not already advocate. But by allies, I mean they don't have the issue of belonging and of trying to fight for them to have a place where they are. They mean well, but once in a while, they don't realize when they're harming us, when they're part of the problem because of what they don't know. So that ties back to what you asked earlier about education. Doing that works also takes a bit of, being willing to educate the people you're working with, the collaborators, without, shaming them for not knowing. But yeah, so that's part of the issue here. The second thing I will add very lastly is that I noticed that people of color, especially indigenous, we always ask for free labor very easily. Can you do this? I don't have a budget for that. But the exact same thing, if they're asking a white person, and I have to bring up the race here because that's how I observed and that's how it came across. They will have a check ready to go for exactly the same service. And I've witnessed several times where in the same space for exactly the same job, someone is going to be paid hundreds more for speaking engagement as opposed to the Black woman. And I'm talking about me, that has happened to other people I know, right? So those are some of the changing the mindset and helping people recognize their own bias has been part of the challenge.
Mm-hmm. It will always be a challenge, but we need to talk about these issues. Otherwise, people don't actually realize the experiences that
Yeah.
we go through as women of color, and
Mm-hmm.
especially as Black women.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a candidate for Yolo County Supervisor District 4, what are your main goals for promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion within the county? And how do you plan to achieve this? Give us more detail of your plan and your strategy to achieve this goal.
So it starts with how the staff is trained, right? So this year we are in 2024. So that was at the end of last year. The county finally created a Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, created a position for that, and hired a DEI officer. And the task of that person was first to ensure that all of the county's employees were trained, when it came to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm someone who, for, over 10 years, I've been working with communities from different, cultural group and heritage and so on. And one piece of feedback that keeps coming over and over is that they want to be able to speak, if English is not their first language, they want to be able to have access to material or to speak to someone who speaks their language, at least Spanish or Russian, and so on. And again, I mentioned that the United States is one of the most culturally diverse country on the planet. And so that translates where we live as well, where many families speak more than English at home. And it's nothing to be mad about for people who are thinking and saying, you live in this country, therefore you should speak English. I want to tell you that, we shouldn't prevent people from speaking additional languages. It's actually good for our brain. It helps prevent dementia. I'm not going to go into that, but there's been many scientific studies on the benefits of just being exposed to cultural diversity and embracing it. So, but again, so one of the first thing I will do is ensuring that the county has chances for professional development, have chances to learn a second language if they don't already know one, that they have cultural sensitivity training, and that goes for the police force as well. And the reason I bring that up is because in working with the police, we need to be safe, right? When we have events, and in other situations. But I think it's important for the police force to be aware of some of the cultural values before they show up in a space, to understand what some reactions might be, or to understand how to best collaborate with the people, in a particular group and so on. So that's what I mean, by that. And then secondly, you heard me mention how it is important to have the community in the driver's seat. So when it comes to representation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm someone who has been advocating for participatory budget, meaning, for local governments, nonprofits, and other organizations, when they want to collaborate with community members, not to assume that people can give their time for free. Some people are going to say yes, because if they don't say yes, it means that the group does not have a voice. So they're making a sacrifice. But literally, you could be talking to someone who is helping 4 or 5 different other people, have food on the table and so on. So you want to make sure you show them you value their time. That is also important because there is power dynamic at play here. An organization or local government creating an event or think tank and telling, we want diversity representation, we want your voice before we make the decision, please come to our meeting. Usually what happens is that the people who organize the meeting are already paid for the time. This is during the working hours. Even if it's after office hours, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., they're still paid for extra for the time. The people who are coming to meet with them and work with them most likely are not. You want to make sure. And if you know that someone is not, then you want to address that. And you want at least to give the opportunity for someone to have a form of compensation. They can say no if they're wealthy, they have a pension, they're just happy to serve and to volunteer in that capacity. My point is to not assume. And I think that a supervisor and any other elected officials always want to be mindful of that. That is what equity It's one of the aspects of practicing equity principles. And again, like I said before, ensuring that there is constant communication with the constituents, letting them know, not just via a newsletter, not everyone has an easy access, right, to that type of technology. I mentioned the importance of meeting people where they are. So, once during the quarter or during the month, going either to the farmers market or to a place where there's going to be a big community gathering, give people a chance to hear you and a chance to speak to you. So that those are some of the practices that I want to see more and want to see implemented more when it comes to an elected official, to a county supervisor doing that type of work. I hope I have answered your question.
Oh, you certainly have. That is just awesome. Absolutely inspiring. Now, let's talk a little bit about your personal reflections. Looking back at your journey from Cameroon to the heart of Yolo County's community and environmental efforts, what advice would you give individuals who aspire to make a difference in their communities through diversity and inclusion work?
I'm going to start by saying make it fun. Don't talk about it by telling people you have to do this.
Yeah.
Don't make people feel forced into it. Speak people's language. And so what I mean by making fun, gathering and knowing that there's going to be food and music helps break the ice. So number one, be informed, know what the resources are, what resources are needed, know what are the services that are available that's going to be helpful, how you can reduce your energy bill, how you can, produce less waste, how you can recycle better, and so on. Gather that information and then organize a neighborhood party. Go to businesses and say, hey, I'm going to do this. Would you want to donate something that we're going to use as a prize? And then you're going to have your name out there. You'll be supporting something great.
Yes.
Neighborhood picnic, so that can be one thing. When it comes to kids, having a contest, some type of contest and prizes where the kids are able to reflect on what it's like to take good care of our planet and in a very practical way, not just about planting more trees, but I mean in the everyday life, what can you do every day from the moment you wake up in the morning that makes a difference?
Yeah.
And having people try to come up with the answer, it's not always helpful to tell them this is what you need to do. People remember better when it came from them.
Yeah.
So that's the advice that I will say, is like, keep the fun in it. It's supposed to be a fun process. We're supposed to take pleasure doing that. It's supposed to be a joy to take care of each other and to take care of our environment.
In Zimbabwe, we have a proverb, which is ukama igasha unosungwa nechikafu, which literally translated means friendships are like fabric, which is woven together with the breaking of bread. So when you eat and share a meal with somebody who's not like you, it really cements the understanding of your culture, your friendship, etc. So I love the fact that you're incorporating food and having fun in everything you're doing. So 2 more questions before I let you go. If I could take you back to the past, let's have a bit of a time experiment. And I'm going to teleport you back to that young woman who had a vision to change her community, to stand for office and make a difference. If you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you give? Just in case there's another young person who's thinking about running for office, give us 3 pieces of advice that you would have wanted somebody to have told you before you started.
So the first advice I will give someone who wants to change the world or improve their community, make their community better by serving their community, whether it's running for office or in a different capacity. Number one, it is worth it. And what I mean by that is, do it. I know you're thinking about it, you're considering it. It's absolutely worth it. So do it. But The moment you say yes, the moment you decide to go down that path, make the commitment to not look back. Make the commitment to never give up. Even when it seems as if things are not working, things are against you, it's not over until it's over. You never know, what can happen until you reach that finish line. And so it is important again to know deep down in your heart, any challenge, sacrifice, blood shed, tears, and so on is absolutely worth it. Your community is worth it, and you're the best person for the job. No one has the experience that you have. No one solves problems the way that you do. No one sees the world the way that you do. So your voice and your energy and your contribution will be missed if you don't, you don't get in the space. So now that's the number one. It is worth it, and you are needed. Number two, partnership, and that has different forms. It means, again, I mentioned the importance of staying humble. And so look for a mentor if you do not already have one. And look for one who is experienced in the field where you want to get in, right? Someone who is going to have some experience in that particularly. So if you're thinking of running for office, try to find a political mentor. And then on the topic of partnerships, have a circle of trust. You're going to have moments that are going to be difficult, where you feel down, where you wonder if you should keep going, where you wonder why you did that, and you feel like you're not equipped, adequate. That's when you need trusted people around you. It doesn't have to be a big circle, but people you can always go to, no matter how you feel, no matter if you're crying, ugly, or pretty. They're going to welcome you with open arms, and they will know just what to tell you to help you recharge your batteries and to help you reset and to help you get out of the funk. So partnership is important. It doesn't have to be a lot of people, but it has to be people you trust and people who have your back. And if you're someone who is spiritual, someone who is, religious, no matter what your faith is, and your faith, involves praying, then you want people who are praying for you. That's important. And then number three, be goal-oriented, goal-driven, result-driven. Start that journey already knowing what you want the outcome to be in everything that you do. You need to know ahead of time, this is what I want to have achieved. This is the change, the very specific change I want to see in my community. I'm going to do this. I'm going to run for office. Even if I'm not elected, I want something good to come out of it. And this is the change that I want to see in there. So have a clear goal. It's going to make the whole difference, and it's going to help you assess when you're making progress or not. And it's going to help keep you accountable. And it's going to ensure that no matter what happens during the journey, you get at least something achieved. So those are the three pieces of advice. Number one, it is worth it. Do it. You're the best person for the job. Your talents, your contribution, your voice are needed. Your energy. Number two, look for the right partners. Do that with wisdom. Have a mentor, but also have a circle of trust. And number three, have clear goals. Be goal-oriented and keep the prize, eyes on the prize, keep the goal in mind, keep moving forward no matter what and no matter how you feel. You're going to have days where you feel strong and days where you feel weak. On your weak days, you still need to find a way to put one foot in front of another. Even if you do it slowly, get something done.
Oh, absolutely inspiring. So, my last question for you is again going to be a time experiment, but this time I'm teleporting you into the future. If I could teleport you into the future to go and meet the 80-year-old you, you're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your family, your dogs, your cats, whoever is with you at the end. If you could go and have a conversation with this wise woman who has led you to this point, based on how you're living your life, the difference you want to make before you die, what would you say to this wise woman who's helping you build this legacy?
So I need to set the stage for you. You said that the wise woman is in her rocking chair. Maybe she's in her rocking chair, but I need to tell you that she has makeup on. She has her hair done. She has extravagant earrings. She is looking like $1,000,000 and she looks like she's ready to party.
Right.
That 80-year-old is a spunky person with like high energy and who is loving life to the fullest. So what I will be telling her, that very wise woman, I think she's the one who probably will be talking to me. So I'm not sure. I think I need you to remind me what the question is, because I don't know what I can tell someone who has lived a rich life and has done a lot. So am I supposed to ask her a question?
Okay, so the reason why I ask people this question, and especially women, is because we don't realize the wisdom that is already in us.
True.
We don't trust our intuition. We don't trust that inner voice. We second guess ourselves. And this is an opportunity for you to go and talk to this woman because she's already leading you, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what would you say to her? She's led you to such greatness, to leave the planet a better place than you found it. What would you say to her when you finally meet her? That's the question.
So what I will tell that fabulous person, I know I'm supposed to be very deep right now, and we're talking about leaving the planet a better place. But the very first thing on my heart, I will wanna hug her, because I will know that I've come this far because of the trail that you blazed for me, and I would want to celebrate life with her. What I would want to ask her or tell her is, every day we need to do our part to keep this world the best we can make it, to improve on it, right? My big question is, how do we do it with joy? What are your best practices in making that happen with joy, laughter, and still finding and being grounded in your strength as you're doing that? But the biggest thing on my heart, the fact that she's 80 years old, the fact that she's there, the fact that she looks as happy as she is and that she's still ready to enjoy life and so on, I would want to celebrate that. It is no small feat to have come as far as she has, to have done all that she has. And if she can do it, I know she's telling me I can do it too.
Thank you so much for playing with me with that last question.
I just want to party, you can tell.
I have a thing that I do where I know the voice, I know her promptings, I know she's guiding me. And sometimes when I'm struggling with something that I'm working on, I go into my meditation, I go into my prayers, and I sometimes go to sleep with the question as simple as, what is my next step?
Mm-hmm.
So our subconscious mind continues to work even when we're sleeping. Deep inside us, we have all the answers. So I play with the energy of who I am becoming, and I'm encouraging more women to trust that she is there and that you are being divinely guided to why you're on the planet and the difference you're going to make.
Mm.
So your story is an excellent example of all of this. Thank you for being a manifestation of the possibility of what a woman can do to change her community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy and absolute pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is bringing you voices of people from all over the world, game changers, go-givers who are on the planet to make a difference in the celebration of our diversity. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thank you again, MJ.
Bye. Thank you.
Now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Herstory Circle Podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Herstory Circle Podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making